on behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight. Welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
Well, it's a great day to meet someone who I almost kind of met. That's a great thing about technology is that we can connect with people that we really haven't been with physically, but I think we have been physically together, but we didn't really meet. Anyway, here's Master Sergeant Andrew Livingston, who is a reservist, I think, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And we kind of met up because I spoke at your workshop, or I don't know what it was, some gathering that you
Yeah,
guys.
symposium.
Is that what it was? Okay. And I didn't get to meet many of y'all, but anyway, we were together, so we kind of are connected, and now we're connected by ones and zeros. So good to meet you again, Master Sergeant. Uh, I I've heard a lot about you from Senior Master Sergeant Melinda Curry, who was a fellow colleague, and we worked together and all that kind of stuff. And she speaks highly of you. So, looking forward to hearing some maybe some different perspectives on what leaders should do, particularly chiefs, because this is about chiefs, but leaders in from any wherever they come, civilian and military. Now, how long have you been? You're as a reservist. How long have you been? You had some active duty time and then reserve time, or how does that work for
Yeah,
you?
so I started day one as the reserves, but as the world changed, of course, we have a tremendous amount of active duty time. So I have out of my 20 years, probably 16 years active, maybe a little bit less.
Wow. Okay. And that all depends on what's going on in the world, right? You get to like what is it, duty days or I don't know what the term is, but some days are considered active duty days and some are just training like normal.
Yeah, correct. Or it depends what the mission goes on. So when I was security forces back in 2003, 2004, we were there to help with the training of the troops. When I was space operations, we did real world ops on that side. So there's a lot of different active duty days that we accomplish.
Yeah. Now, before we got started, you were telling me you're like you were a first sergeant for a while, and now you're
Mhm.
an eye doctor or an eye something or
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, so I have four AFSCs. I started my career as a security forces member. That was my first enlistment. I did that from 2003, 2004-ish to about 2008, roughly around that time frame. It all gets fuzzy at the end of this.
Yeah.
Then moved into healthcare. I'm a four Victor currently now and was then as well. So that's optometry, and then I have an ophthalmology shred out. And then I moved into One Charlie Six, and I did that for a long time on a few different weapon systems. And then I became a first sergeant. And when I took my diamond off, I went back to medical instead of space.
Okay. Now, how long were you a first sergeant?
I was a first sergeant from 2017 through 2022.
Okay. All right. And so you got a lot of experience in leading or herding cats, as it may be, uh,
Something like that.
something
Yeah,
like
my
that.
time as a first sergeant and those who are in that time frame, I think that we're probably some of the most experienced with, we had a lot of different movements in the military that I don't think we've seen before.
Yeah, yeah, and in some cases, I hope we never see again. But
Right.
and you do some leadership training, some speaking, and all that kind of stuff. Have you written a book, or this? Are these just concepts that you have that you present orally?
Yeah, so yes to both. So my book is not out yet. It will be. I speak about this program at different colleges and at different corporations as well. But mine's different. So I don't speak about a theoretical approach. We try to put leadership into a practical approach to actually make an impact on our decisions. This is something that's well researched that I started in grad school and then finish this up through my civilian time to make sure that it is tested and a tried and tested solution is really what I'm looking for.
Okay, and what's the name of the program?
Yeah, so my program is called Impact 360. And so what I look
Impact
at is we
360.
combine, yeah, we combine different leadership tactics and methodologies with what I call success traits and really a solution focused decision making model. And that solution focused decision making is really key in 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 my program.
And you say you do this for the military as well as civilian organizations?
I've been asked to do this in the military, yes, unofficially, but mostly civilian organizations that
Okay,
we do. So.
okay. All right. Well, I read through all of the stuff that the main tenets of your program, Master Sergeant, and good stuff. Good stuff. I wanted to touch on a couple of them, though. Number one was relationship mastery.
Mhm.
That's pretty broad, and we can go in many directions. But I contended that the first thing and the most important thing a leader does is care, and the way they do it is through, I think it's the same concept, relationship mastery. But we don't want to coddle people, right? I mean, and I'm an old school guy. I came in 1972. You weren't even thought of yet when I came into the military, and things were different then. We did things differently, and than we do now. But it always has been a matter of relationship mastery. Okay, yeah, if you can master anything, that would be what you want to master,
Right.
and you have some perspectives on it. So share some of those
Yeah.
with me.
Well, I'll tie it to the rank of a chief master sergeant because that's what this is about,
Mhm.
correct? And so when we're looking at a chief, there's a lot of things that can make one succeed. There's a lot that can make one fail, correct? And one thing that I personally believe in why chiefs fail is I believe they become the trap of the top 1%. We made it, so that's it. We don't really care anymore. And so relationships are then implied, right? And so one of the major aspects to being a chief is influence. But influence goes two ways. It goes in a positive direction and it goes in a negative directions. This is actually the core components of my relationship mastery philosophy. I believe there are only two outcomes, either a positive outcome or a negative outcome. I don't believe there's a gray area. And I don't believe that because if there's a gray area, I tend to not trust you. I tend to not like you. I tend to not really want to be around you. This is really important for that Chief Master Sergeant rank because if you do assume that we have a positive relationship because of your rank and because you're a chief and because you're charismatic, I think we fall into that trap of the top 1%. And that's not always the case. And so when we focus on this component, again, my rules are very simple. In relationships, we have to either be positive or we have to be negative. And then the main component to this, it's okay to have both, right?
Mhm.
So if you are in the positive direction, then fantastic. Then you as a chief can really make an impact. You can start influencing, you can start developing, you can start mentoring, you can start building those barriers of trust or the gateways of trust, I should say. And then if you don't do that, that's where that barrier comes in. I misspoke. You're going to start having distrust. You're going to have start bad incomes or bad outcomes. You're not going to really have that core influential impact that you want with your subordinates.
Now, and I agree with you. But what about, and I talk a lot about, in fact, I'm working on a book called The Other F Word. It has to do with followership, not the word that you were thinking of. I know you're thinking about friendship, but the follower has a part in this.
1,000%.
Right, because it's not just the leader that is doing this developing the relationship, and again, I guess we could say that the leader is responsible for that because he or she is the leader and should be working on this because they take the lead. But the follower has a lot to do with it, right? I mean, it's a
Absolutely.
perspective thing. I've I've worked with people that I thought I got along with, only to realize that I wasn't getting along with them. I was, but
Right.
they weren't. It wasn't reciprocal. And in some cases, I was able to fix that. In some
Mhm.
cases, I was just, and you've probably known some people that you just can't stand. No matter if
Yeah,
there's something for
absolutely.
some reason, you just cannot stand them, no matter how hard they work. And
Mhm.
and that's part of being a human, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I developed my program. This isn't just for CEOs or CMOs or CISOs or chiefs or any one of these very important positions. This is really for everybody. So typically when I teach this program, it is really to everyone from the top of the food chain down to the bottom because of what you just said right there. And I think one of the strengths that I have as a follower and those around me will tell you quite honestly that if we're talking and we're not jiving, I will tell you, you're not the mentor for me. You're not the right person for me. This isn't really going to go anywhere in a positive direction. And I cut it off. And that's really important to do as a follower because I do look up to my senior leaders. I do look up to my chiefs. And if I think they're the wrong mentors, I want to make sure that I find the right mentor for my goals, my aspirations, and my path. And I think that's something that is never talked about in the military whatsoever. And followership is absolutely important. There have been many, many chiefs, many, many command chiefs where I have told them, hey, this isn't working out. I have to have a different person. I have to have a barrier. And I do also make it a point when I do find chiefs out there that have really touched me that I let them know, hey, I really like this. This is the impact you had on my life. Can I keep this bridge of communication open? And so I did two things there as a follower. One, I stopped it. If it's going to be toxic and negative, I got to find that right mentor. And I want you to know that as a chief, it's important you hear that feedback. And two, if you're doing something right and you're connecting with me, I want you to know because I want to develop that bridge of communication and ensure that it's open. And it might not be open for you. And so we want to make sure we talk about that.
Yeah, and with mentoring, also a lot of times people think that one person is going to be the mentor for everything.
Right.
Well, that seldom happens. I've never had it happen, and I'm an old guy, but I have four mentors. I keep four mentors in different areas of my life because they are, I'll say, experts or have wisdom in those areas that I don't have, and I seek that. But it's specific. I don't go to one of them for someone else's expertise. It just doesn't work out because I think I would get to it. I've never done it, but I would think I would get to that point where I say, well, you're not for me. Well, it's not necessarily that you're not for me. It's just that you don't have the expertise in this area that I
Correct.
need, because we can be respectful and not be crazy about each other because I can share with you what you're looking for, guide you in the direction that you're going and all that type of stuff. So it's but again, a lot of times people say, well, that's my mentor. In what area? In what respect?
Exactly.
Now there is probably an exception, and I don't know what your relationship is with your dad. My dad was my big time mentor. He was my primary mentor in everything in life. He passed away about 9 years ago, but
Yeah.
um, but nonetheless, it's not always that way that one person can mentor you in everything. And a good mentor will tell you that, hey, I don't know. It's like I taught at the Air Force Academy for almost 20 years. And a lot of times I would tell them, all the time, I would tell them, don't ask me about academics. I have no idea. I don't know numbers. I don't do science. None of that. There's an app for that somewhere. But if you want to talk about character and leadership, the topics that I was an expert at, yeah, I can help you with that. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree. My dad was and my dad's still alive. He's absolutely my best friend and biggest mentor. He suffered a stroke a few years ago from the
oh,
Pfizer vaccine. So he can't really talk or walk anymore. And so it's been a huge deficit in me. But yeah, I absolutely agree. And there's been significant leaders throughout my career. In fact, I'll tell you, day one joining the military, the biggest impact to me was from my very first chief in security forces. And he told me, he said, listen, the Air Force is what you make it. So go have some fun. Don't deny opportunities. And that has been the backbone of my entire career. I mean, I have four AFSCs for a reason. And it is that line alone. And he was a mentor in that one because, listen, an opportunity came to medical. I'm going to go. It's going to space. Let's see what happens. And it's been a fantastic ride. And that really made me successful as a first sergeant. I had an enormous breadth of knowledge. I've seen so many different missions from boots on the ground to space operations to medical and aiding people. And that made me a fantastic first sergeant. And the second thing he did is he showed me something that I never, ever wanted to do or be. He did 33 years in the military, right? That's our cap, 33 years, if I remember correctly. And he died a week after he retired.
oh my
And I
gosh.
said, I never, ever want to do that and make sure I put who's important in my life. And so, in everything that I do and every decision that I make, it's always my wife and my kids and in that order. And that chief really made a significant impact on my career,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's why when we talk about relationships, some of these mentors, they don't even know. They have no idea what they do to people. And so that's really important for me to
Yeah.
acknowledge in my program.
Yeah. And I will give you some advice, an old guy that's been around. Take care of you first. That's the most important relationship. What's your relationship with yourself? And I tell you that, and again, we've only seen each other twice. And I know the first time that we met a couple of months ago, you said, wow, what a ruggedly handsome chief. I know
That's
that, I know
absolutely.
you were speechless after that. This is not a natural process. this takes work. And you know, a lot of times we neglect this. Person number one, the relationship with yourself. You got to take care of yourself. And that's what happened back in my day. I don't know how many, but there were several chiefs served as long as they could, and they were gone month later because they didn't take
Yeah.
care of themselves. And those days, man, it was like smoke them if you got them. I don't know if you ever
You know,
heard that.
it's funny you say that because, that guy, I mean, I always thought the hard work did him in, but it could have been the 35 cigars he smoked a day.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that doesn't work well for the body usually. But
Yeah.
so anyway, yeah. And we always, you know, I do values, a lot of training on values. And when I ask people what's the most important thing in your life, most people say my family. Okay, that's good, but that should be probably number two. Number one should be you. And that sounds selfish. And you know,
Yeah.
service before self. We brainwash people into thinking that it's service before self. No, it's about integrity. I got to take care of me. You cannot give what you do not have. That's just that, you know, that's a natural law. Uh, so anyway, but I respect that. And that's the relationship. Critical,
Yep.
critical. Now, the other one,
Um,
and I think it's the sixth one in your list, persistent follow through.
yeah.
Man, commitment is the word that comes after that. You know, commitment is it's not a verb in the sense that you're going to do anything. And like you said at the beginning, you got to do this stuff, man. You can't just say, I'm committed to it. I will do it. I did do it. That's the real, no kidding, essence of
Absolutely.
whether you did it. And that follow through, sometimes we just, you know, I have I'm so good at making excuses that I have them numbered. I don't have words to them anymore. I'm not going to work out today because of number 33
Right.
or number
No,
16.
that's good.
You know, I'm that good. I'm that good. I've honed this skill. So
Yeah, no,
follow through is
absolutely.
critical. Yeah.
And it's last in my process on purpose. And just so we speak in context, it's quite simple. It's 6 steps. I call them success traits, and it's relationships, discovery, right? Then we have expectations, accountability. Then we can execute, and then finally follow through. And we could go into depth on any one of those stages, but follow through, especially as a chief, is extremely important. Now, when we talk about what is a chief, now it's clearly defined, right? It's in our brown book. It is absolutely clearly defined. We know where a chief sits. We know what their core components are. But there's one word to a chief to me, and I've already said it. It's influence. That's what you do. I mean, you have so much influence, you know, going up and going down. And the number one rule for follow through is if you say you're going to do it, you have to do it. But along those lines, if you say you did something and you didn't do it, the ripple impact is tremendous. I mean, that just takes away all credibility from leadership almost overnight. I mean, in something as small and insignificant as, hey, I move all my patches on my uniform to see if you'll correct me, and you guys do it. And we're sitting in the audience like, you've never done that. What are you talking about? Are you saying that because like the wing commander's in the room and you want to sound cool? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know? Or hey, I've done A, B, and C for troops. And like, I know you haven't because I still see the same problem and I haven't seen you involved in anywhere. And this is a big deal for me. And so, I'll give you some examples as a first sergeant and then really as a senior leader and just somebody who cares. To me, an E8 is a very interesting rank. To me, that's a placeholder, right? A senior master sergeant is your next chief. So if you're interviewing someone for senior master sergeant and you can't forward project that, hey, this person would be a great chief someday, whether they want it or not, they might not be the right candidate for a senior master sergeant, right? And so if we, maybe we have an E8 that needs development and, senior NCO course, like, hey, chief, I got to get some more development for these E8s or these E7s or these E3s. And it just doesn't happen, then how effective are you? How far does that influence go? And trust me, it's that quick we make that decision. But quite the contrary, I can tell you 2 chiefs off the top of my head that said they were going to do something and they actually did it in 20 years. 2. And you know how many chiefs I've had? In fact, I don't know if the audience reaches out there, but Chief Nathan Perry, one of the most impactful individuals in my entire career, in my entire life. That guy not only said, "Shirt, if you ever need me, call me." When I needed him and I called him, he was there and he followed through and took care of me above and beyond anyone could ever do. In fact, the other day, I was talking about him to a group of my friends, and I was like, I wonder where he's at. And I just text him, hey, Chief, what's up, man? Is this still your number? And he's like, hey, what's up, Shirt? It's mine. I mean, he talked to me like he remembered me yesterday, whether he did or didn't. But he's one of the main individuals. And that impact not only went through me, but almost every single person I touched as a first sergeant and a senior NCO. And so it's a big deal to follow through.
And a lot of time, well, let me ask you this. What about when circumstances are such that you can't accomplish what you promised? Because in the world that we live in
Mhm.
particular in the military, things happen. I
Yeah,
had a plan. I promised you I would do this, and something happened.
sure.
Who knows what it could be? What do you do then? What's your advice for a person who gets in that
Yeah,
position
super simple.
situation?
And that's why expectations is really key on my list, right? Because we set these expectations. And the expectations are quid pro quo. They're a two-way street, right? I need to set them for you as a chief, and you need to set them for me as an individual and a senior NCO. There's two expectations set there, right? And it could be as simple as this. Listen, the military is a machine that is never, ever going to stop. With or without you, we are always going to move forward. And if you don't believe me, have you ever heard of a continuity binder? I got your replacement in a three-ring binder right behind me, right? But I'll do everything I can within my scope of practice to achieve what I can. And that's all expectation setting. But if you skip these steps and you get to follow through, to your point here, this is where we start having distrust and don't believe you. And can you get there? Because you're right. We can't promise unicorns and rainbows and magical sunshine all the time. We just can't do that. But you can set the expectations that you will achieve what's in your power. And quite honestly, sometimes it's just the smallest things go the longest ways. Like if you promised me as a chief, and I'll give you another chief that said this, and it was so funny as an A1C in security forces, my command chief said, if anyone wants to come over and have a beer, I got a room over here and come over, have a beer. We'll just shoot the shit. And they're like, oh, Livingston, you should go. And so I went as a little A1C and knocked on the door and he had a beer with me. And I was like, guys, he's not lying. I mean, we didn't talk about anything significant. We had a beer and that was that. And it was unbelievable how much clout that individual got. And so it is really the smallest things. And I don't know if that answered your question or not, but setting expectations for this follow through is absolutely critical.
Well, and it all goes back to I think that what you mentioned in the relationship mastery is trust based,
Yeah.
and and even if you have a good basis of trust in the organization with the people, whoever you're trying to be
Mhm.
trustworthy with, they will forgive you if you do fail for some reason.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't. I got sick. I was
Mhm.
going to be there. I was going to be at your game, and I got sick, man. I was sick as a dog, and I just couldn't make it. And they will be more. The followers will be more forgiving if you've done that.
Yeah.
Stephen Covey used to talk about an emotional bank account. You make deposits constantly, so that when you have to make a withdrawal like that, it's not as bad as it would be if they don't trust you.
Yeah.
If your bank account is about to go the wrong way. Uh, but that does take a lot of work, a lot of times. But does go back to that follow through. Yeah, I can trust that the chief, he told me he'd be here. He'd be here unless
Mhm.
something terrible happened. I've had this situation with I do a couple other podcasts, and a couple of times the people that I do them with couldn't make it at the last minute, and one of them, her name is Dava Flowers, a wonderful young lady, and when it happened with her, she said, "Wow, Chief, I didn't know that you would be so forgiving." Well, it would have to do with her baby. Her baby got sick or something.
Yeah.
Hey, life happens, man. I've got to forgive you. So I'd be the jerk if I didn't.
Absolutely. And I get asked all the questions when we're talking about this, and it's like, well, how do you start a relationship, right? How do you know if it's going positive? How do you know if it's already negative? And let's say I'm coming in, I'm the new chief. How do I know what you as the previous chiefs left me, right? And it's really simple. One, relationships start on the introduction from the very get-go in your greeting. And we all know, and you said it's human nature. We can feel where it's going, right? Is it positive? Or what does that culture look like? Sometimes we walk into these and it's negative, but how do you know it's negative? And there are some really telltale signs. The first thing is a blame culture. If you're walking into an environment and it's just, well, I didn't do it, he did it, or she did it, or they did it, right? But no one's taking ownership. And I call that a blame culture. Whether you're cultivating it now or you walked into it, some sort of a negative distrust on that side. We look at clearly losses. What is our retention? I mean, when we have a bad chief or a bad commander, what happens? Retirement packages, IR packages, people jump ship, they transfer. I mean, you'll see a huge influx in that. Okay. We have a ton of resistance, a ton of conflict. Whatever the idea is, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You know? And lastly, reduced performance and poor communications. These are all erosions of trust. And these are all telltale signs that you have a negative relationship. So what do? Right? You do two things. You can either cut it off if you can, or you put a barrier to help interpret. Now, if you're a chief, you can't cut off relationships. You can't cut off communication. You're the chief, but you can put barriers in between you to help relay your message, to help smooth that over. And you'll see quite the opposite if it's in a positive directions. You'll see mutual accountability. Let me say that again, mutual accountability, right? Hey, you're right, chief, I messed up. That tells me that you're comfortable telling me you messed up. And also, I'm comfortable receiving that message. And that's something that's very, very rare. High retention, strong collaboration, stronger performance, right? Enhanced communication. This is how you know it's in that positive direction. And, those are the telltale signs. And that makes your follow through so much easier, because if you can't do something and you got that erosion of trust, oh, I am not going to give you clout. I don't want to hear about it. You're done, right? But if we had that positive direction, then absolutely we can take this misstep on the follow through, and we can continue to press. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So here in the last couple of minutes, brand new Chief Livingston just got his stripe on, and you guys have a different way of promoting people, I think, in the reserves, right? But anyway, brand new Chief Livingston walks into the office. What's your best advice for him to succeed?
Oh, the very first thing that I like to do when I take over leadership positions is I like to know what's working well. And I also like to know what's not working. It's that simple. And it's, hey, team, what's working? And then shut up. And what's not working? And then shut up. Too often as chiefs do individuals get up there and they have a quick answer to everything, a quick response to all this stuff. Digest it, think about it, right? And really in the reserve command, the last piece of advice that I would give to a chief master sergeant is understand the power of the reserves. I'm not talking about the military component. The reserves has something so special that nothing else has in it. And it's the fact that we have two lives going on simultaneously. We have a civilian life and we have a military life. And that civilian life gives us a tremendous amount of experience and clout and educations and really life that we can leverage to complete that military mission. Look at it. You have no idea who's in that room or the power of that network. You got FBI agents, you got congressmen, you got medical doctors, you got really highly skilled individuals that we're just not tapping into. Ask that question and rely on that. So what? You got an E4 there. That person can have a double doctorate and run a Fortune 500 company. Why can't that individual make a strategic decision? Leverage those.
And that goes with, and I know that's part of what you're saying, is getting to know people, knowing that they
Absolutely.
have, and we call that empowering. I have my own perspective on empowering, but to help them to be willing to share what they. I don't know if this happened when you went to basic training, but as I was leaving the recruiter's office to go get my tickets and all that stuff, he says, "Don't volunteer." Don't volunteer for anything. Just do what you're told and you'll
Sure.
be fine.
I've
And
heard that before.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
I failed at that because I couldn't
Yeah.
help it. But I think that was and maybe to some degree it was okay to get through that. But in reality, especially when you're in an organization, man, I remember several times where I found out that some of my followers could do certain things
Yeah.
that hadn't told me. They were keeping it secret. And then when I found out, I said, man, now maybe it didn't work for them because I put them in charge of it. You do numbers, you're the
Yeah.
budget guy.
That's
Well,
right.
I don't want to do that, chief. Well, you will. And they
Yeah.
excelled at it. They excelled, and I got them promoted quicker and all that kind of stuff because they deserved it. But
Yeah.
otherwise, they would have been sitting back in the back saying, I'm not
Sure.
volunteering for nothing. I'm not volunteering. No, man, share with, like you say, who
Yeah.
knows what you have? Who knows what you can do? Unless I know, realize that and I understand it, then
Absolutely.
I can put you up there and make you a shining star.
Absolutely. And then cater to those aspirations. I mean, I've had people in my medical clinic who's like, I really, really want to be security forces. And I'm like,
Oh, wow,
then
really?
why are you here? Let's go. And they're like, oh, I can do that. Absolutely. Let's talk to the shirt. Let's talk to the chief. There's no reason why I'm going to keep you somewhere you don't want to be for a multitude of reasons. Even if it doesn't work out, the fact that myself as a senior leader went and made that happen for somebody, or even given the opportunity to shadow and cater to the aspirations, my level of trust that I have with these individuals are far superior to those of my chief who's going to shut it down and say, nope, you're a body, you're in there, you made a decision, you're sticking around.
Right.
And so, like, cater to these aspirations, ask the questions, discover about them, and it's okay if their why doesn't align with your why.
Right.
That's what makes our force so strong. That's really how we execute these missions effectively.
Yeah. And we all realize that if we're going to be effective, that we have a bigger why. Our personal
Absolutely.
ones are may not be the same, but our bigger why is to protect the country.
Mhm.
And as long as we can do that, we're good.
Absolutely.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Master Sergeant Andrew Livingston, for being with me,
Yeah,
man.
thank you so
I
much.
know
It was great.
you were going to go out playing golf today, and instead you're spending time with me. Do you even play golf?
Not well.
Well, I don't know. There's only a few people that I know
I
that do
buy
that
a
well.
bag of balls for $30 at Walmart, and
Yeah.
then I use them and I just drop them all day long.
Yeah, that works. Again, thank you very much, man. You take care of yourself. Good luck with all of the stuff that you're doing, and especially with the eye stuff, because I'm getting to that age. I wear glasses
Yeah.
too, but I only wear them because it make me look like Colin Powell. But anyway, you take care of yourself, and I look forward. Let's have lunch sometime.
Yes, Chief.
God bless you, brother.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Bye.